So welcome to our second webinar in our series focusing on diversity and inclusion and skills development for fieldwork. And my name is Ajisha Alwin. So I work with ESA on a research project that focuses on understanding the employer expectations for skills when they go for entry-level jobs and what skills students come out with from undergraduate field programs. And we have two incredible students today with us who are going to be hosting the entire webinar, Ahinya Alwin and Karina Cortijo-Robles, who are going to be giving you a little bit of brief about what our project is about and what we learned and what we've hoped to accomplish in today's webinar. So with that said, I will turn it over to Ahinya.
Hi everyone, my name is Ahinya Alwin and I'm a high school senior. In general, almost everyone goes through the process of job hunting. The criteria is a characteristic which is common for every job, either part-time or full-time. All employers make sure that who they employ fits their criteria. For employers who pick their employees from recently graduated students from undergraduate field programs, they look for specific skills and traits in their interviewees to ensure a smooth recruitment. In our study, we came up with a categorization for skills because there are no pre-existing categories for distinguishing preferred skills in relation to fieldwork. Fieldwork skills can be broadly divided into three categories, which are the transferable skills, technical skills, and program-specific skills. Technical skills can be defined as specific skills needed to perform a certain task in the work environment, like performing a procedure in the field. Transferable skills are the skills that are not limited in use to a single workspace or discipline, but can be applied to multiple jobs. Skills like teamwork and communication are under this category. Lastly, program-specific skills are skills specific to one specific setting under the larger field research umbrella. But how do we know exactly what the employers are looking for? What kind of skills are valued? And this is why in our research study, we are going to be looking at employer expectations of undergraduates and categorize which specific skills they want their future employees to have as well. Now, I'm going to pass the buck to Karina, who's going to talk about diversity and inclusion for underrepresented students in fieldwork.
Yeah, thank you, Ahinya, for that great talk. Hi, my name is Karina Cortijo-Robles. I'm an undergraduate student at University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras campus. I'm interested in ecology and science communication, and this led me to be a volunteer student for this project. As we know, field experience can provide helpful opportunities for many individuals who eventually pursue careers related to the field. This experience provides numerous benefits such as skill development and defining professional goals. However, some of the same elements that define and provide great experience for some students represent challenge for others, especially students from underrepresented groups. These challenges may be financial, physical, cultural, or social. Overall, the underrepresentation and lack of diversity in ecology is well documented. For individuals with cognitive or physical disabilities, challenge could include accessibility, lack of infrastructure to accommodate needs, and also isolation and lack of support. Students from different backgrounds or gender can experience social isolation and marginalization. This all leads to the loss of opportunity to acquire or develop skills. A student's sense of belonging within a given ecology discipline can be profoundly shaped by undergraduate field experience. But we also see a lack of diversity in the labor environment. This presented an obstacle for early career students in their job search. How employers recruit students with disability for fieldwork-based entry-level positions. How employers ensure inclusion in the recruiting process of recent graduates. These are all questions that we aim to answer in this webinar with the help of the wonderful panelists. Now, let's pass to Ajisha, who is going to talk more about undergraduate field experience and a publication.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you for explaining really well as to what we're trying to accomplish today. All right, this is just a slide, and this is an excerpt from our paper. This is just us talking about what we mean by a undergraduate field experience, because every time we talk about undergraduate field experience, everyone's mind automatically goes to REUs, but those are not the only type of undergraduate field experience there is. So in our study, so this is what we regard as field training and what we consider as an undergraduate field experience. And you can just see the criteria there: a credit-hour course, a series of laboratory experiences, or a research experience where the student participates in fieldwork. And this is what we have for our study and what we consider an undergraduate field experience. And this is going to be related to every single question we talk about today. And yes, Karina mentioned the publication, so we have a now published paper in the bulletin. And I think Karina or Ahinya, either one of you can put it in the chat for the link to the paper. And this is just a summarization of what we did with our study before, where we analyzed job descriptions from USGS field internships and also undergraduate field programs and the descriptions given to us for that internship program. So definitely check it out. It's a really good read. It's not too long either, so it's a good read. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Ahinya to do the panel introductions.
So thank you, Ajisha. So we're gonna be moving on to panel introductions. So Andrea, can you please go first?
Sure thing. Hello, I'm Andrea Anteau, and I am a field operations manager with the NEON program, the National Ecological Observatory Network. And we're a research organization funded by the National Science Foundation with field sites all around the country, from Puerto Rico to Alaska and all places in between. And within our organization, each of our 20 different domains, we call them the geographic areas in which we work, each of those areas hires between, say, 10 and 40 temporary seasonals over the course of each field season, which is defined by the growing season in each of our geographic areas. So we do a lot of hiring of undergraduate students, especially for those areas where the field season is the same time frame as summer vacation for the universities in the area.
Okay, thank you, Andrea, for your introduction. So now we'll move on to Jill.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Barron. I work for the US Geological Survey, and I'm an ecosystem ecologist. The middle picture there is me in the ecosystem I work in, which is in the alpine and subalpine environment of the Rocky Mountains. So the US Geological Survey is a research arm of the Department of Interior. We do a lot of basic research. We do a lot of data analysis and synthesis, and it's to provide the nation and other nations with information about resource management, natural resource management, which includes ecological as well as physical resources. I'm one of, there aren't very many of us, there's about 8,000 USGS researchers. Many of them do field research like I do. The research site that I do have been running actually for about 40 years is in Rocky Mountain National Park, and that's what you're looking at right here. We study the effects of global changes, which include not just climate change, but atmospheric deposition, increased visitor use, all kinds of other changes that are taking place in the environment. We look at the so what factor. What does it mean for ecosystems in this particular special area and other mountain areas? So to do that, I hire undergraduates and even sometimes high school students to help with field work and laboratory work. It's not nearly as extensive as what Andrea said for NEON. And for the USGS, most of these programs are hired to work with a specific project. Often for the summertime, we bring in summer interns. Many of my interns end up staying and going on to school, graduate school, but internships can happen at any time of the year. So I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Jill. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. So Ralph, do you?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, and I appreciate having the opportunity to engage in this dialogue. I'm Ralph H. Crawford, and I work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture Forest Service. And when we talk about the Forest Service, just to contextually, it's a really broad agency. We have about 193 million acres of property, 100 million acres of it is forest lands, and 93 million acres of grasslands or rangelands. And we're spread all over the U.S. and Puerto Rico and other places as well. when we talk about the Forest Service, we actually have 5 deputy areas, but I'll just talk about 3 of them. One of them being the National Forest System, and they have the responsibility for managing the natural resources, and they're divided into regions. And the natural resources, we're talking about the water, the air, the vegetation, etc. And then we have state and private forestry. Those are the folks who work primarily with the state and non-commercial wood producers. They do survey and technical assistance. And I work with research and development. And obviously our intent is to produce knowledge, global knowledge, that folks can use it as a tool to manage those natural resources. Now, when we talk about research and development, we're spread all over the U.S. We have scientists that work across internationally. As a matter of fact, at Loquia, down in Puerto Rico, we have a research station. I spent my career. I started as a summer intern, and I've worked my way as a research scientist for a while, and then I've gotten into administration. And so we work with NEON. We work with a lot of different partners. And so when we talk about research and what the skill sets that we need, it depends on the positions and the scale of what the efforts are going to be. So I look forward to hopefully clearly articulating what those opportunities are and how you develop the skills to be flexible, because we need folks in every discipline. We look at from a social, ecological, and economic standpoint. It's like any large corporation, you need to have folks to do things, and working in the field gives you a sense of what the natural resources are, because what we do is serve the American public when it comes to forests and grasslands. And so I look forward to us having this conversation, and I can tell you lessons learned and lessons I wish I had known before I got to a certain point in life.
Thank you, Ralph, for your introduction, and I thank all of the panelists for coming to this webinar and sharing your experiences with us so everyone can learn more about this.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna now, before we pass it on to Karina, where we can start the panel discussion, again, I would like to thank the panelists, and also feel free, if you have, for the panelists, if you have any other comments you want to add beyond the question that's being asked to a specific panelist, feel free to. We can pause and definitely unmute yourself, and that way we can make sure we give you the point to talk about. All right, now moving on, passing it back to Karina for you to start the first.
Yeah, let's start with the first topic, that is about skill development. First, I'm going to start with a general question, and then we will have a specific question. For the general question, it's going to be, what skills do you look for in a student with previous fieldwork experience that is applying to one of your positions? Yeah, you can open your mic and answer the question. Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll go first since I'm at the beginning of the alphabet. For NEON, for our temporary field technicians that we hire to do work at our sites for part of a season, most of those positions, we do extensive training for folks who are just coming on board. And to be perfectly honest, there is not a lot expected as far as previous experience for those positions. We really want people who are very excited to learn, who are willing to come and work. Those jobs are mostly conducted out of doors in all kinds of weather, so you have to be willing to be hot or cold, nibbled on by mosquitoes, those types of things. And if you are excited to come do the work, most of the skills that we expect you to perform over the field season, we are going to do a lot of training on those skills before we send you. So they truly are an open position for anyone who's interested in gaining that previous experience that you might need for future jobs.
I'm not sure where we are in the queue of who you would like to go next to address the question.
Yeah, you can go, Ralph.
So when we look at entry-level positions, as was just stated, folks learn and get knowledge as they acquire experience on the job. We do have position descriptions, and the position descriptions pretty well gives you a sense of what the range of activities that you would be doing. And as you get more experience, then folks can advance with that. But again, going back, the willingness to me, the willingness to learn and to be explorative and to have the flexibility to be inquisitive. Again, we're on the research side. and I guess I'm speaking more from the research side, of really being meticulous, I guess, in reference to recording data and being observational and actually being curious, and with the a longer term vision of where would you like to go. But this is part of the opportunity from an entry level position to learn and grow and express that curiosity.
Yeah, so Ralph and Andrea actually said pretty much the same thing that I was going to say. Our family karate instructor says attitude is everything. And that's really what we're looking for, is someone who is curious, like Ralph said, and willing to jump in with both feet to experiences they may not have had before. And a lot of our field work, I mean, you saw a picture of our field site. It's up there at 4,000 meters, which is about 13,500 feet. The weather is always, except when it's not, the weather is terrible. You need to be willing to work 14-hour days because that's what is required. So you want to have people who are excited, are curious, who are eager, have a good sense of humor, because you need that when you're out there in the middle of nowhere in a driving hailstorm. And you've got some pictures of equipment here. So what Ralph said, I have to second too. We would train you. It's a mixture of common sense. It's a mixture of being able to be outside all day taking data, but then it's also a mixture of being able to be extremely meticulous in how you collect those data, how you record them. And we would train you on all of that. We're never expecting you to walk in and know exactly how we would want you to do it in the first place.
Again, I think you'll get a consistent message from us. I grew up in South Carolina. My first opportunity was in Bend, Oregon, which was very, very different than where I'd grown up. Food-wise, everything that you can think of. So what I will express to you are lessons learned and the ability for me to manage the way that I thought about things. Because we all go places, we have these preconceived ideas, but the ability for us to manage our own thoughts and to be inquisitive, as we said earlier, is extremely important. And the communication, understanding how to communicate. And I tell folks I speak 4 different dialects: Southern, Western, government, all of that stuff. So the ability just to communicate with folks and to meet folks where they are is extremely important, because there are folks who really want to help you grow, because you are the generations that will be moving forward in making the planet a better place to live.
So one of the things that goes along with that is being interested and willing to ask a lot of questions. I actually was lucky enough to start as a volunteer myself with the National Park Service a long time ago. And I had this woman I was working for, and she said, I want you to do this. It was a trail and campsite erosion study. And I go, what do I do? And she goes, well, go read a bunch of books. But better than that, you want to have someone who will explain it to you, but you have to know how to ask the questions in the first place. And just being willing to do that and being assertive enough to say, I don't know enough to get going. That's very important. That's something I would look for also.
Yeah, Andrea, you want to add something? Yeah.
Yes, I would. I'm definitely going to. You definitely are getting a consistent message here, because we're looking for similar skills. That being willing to ask questions and the confidence to say, I don't know this yet, and I am looking to learn. I think for those of us who are trying to get a toehold into a new career, especially if you've had a few classes and you feel like you've got a good handle on some of this, there is maybe a tendency to think, oh, I've got all of this. They expect me to know. And so people are like, I got it. And the truth is, it may be that when you get out there, you realize, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. This isn't what I thought I understood. And it is completely okay, and is in fact encouraged, that when you realize that maybe you didn't understand the instructions, or maybe you didn't have quite the understanding coming into this, that you say, you know what, I need to know more, please explain again. That goes a long way, because then both you learn more about what you are trying to get your foot into, and we have an experience of building that confidence that you're going to go out there and collect good data. And that is what we're all, in the sciences, we want the data to be valid, and coming from a place of understanding gets you a lot further down that road.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you so much, all of you. You guys kind of like talked about what we were gonna ask a specific question with transferable skills. All of you want that communication, that ability to work as a team and to ask questions and be inquisitive. So those are like really, really great answers. Back to Karina. I think we can ask our technical skill question now.
Yeah, I love all your answers. And just I want to add something really quick. Yeah, it's really hard to say, like, I don't know this for a student. And it's very important to just in undergraduate years, just to start to asking questions and being honest. You know, I don't know this stuff. So I just have a last question. I think you all talk about technicals and transfer skills, but yeah, I have a specific question for Andrea. It's going to be, what technical skills do you value the most amongst recent graduates with fieldwork experience?
That's a good question. As I said, for our temporary technicians, we don't have a large degree of technical skills that we're looking for in our pool. It's a lot of those transferable skills, inquisitiveness, enthusiasm, those things. We also hire full-time staff that work at each of our locations in a specific area. So each domain in NEON has a botanist who is going to be in charge of all of the plant protocols. And we have an aquatic scientist who's going to lead the aquatics team. And then we also have a mammologist who will do mammal trapping and lead the invertebrate protocols. And so those are also entry level, but they're usually college graduates. And they're coming in to be in charge of a particular area of our research program. And so those positions, we do require people to have the skills within that system that they're going to be working. So if you are the botanist that is getting hired into that position, we don't necessarily require that you know the plants for that area, but you should be proficient in identifying plants and able to learn the community of the area where you're going to be working, and hopefully be able to learn fairly quickly, because we're hoping you're going to hit the ground running. If you're going to be a small mammal person, we hope that you've actually had experience working with small mammals, trapping them, handling them. They're very squirmy and they're very sharp. So being skilled in that hands-on field work is going to be important. Those positions are also going to be in charge of managing the temporary field staff a lot of the time. So some of those skills that are maybe not in the science realm, but more the people management. So being able to communicate, being able to train people on the skills that they're going to need when they're out there in the field doing this work for the first time. Also the ability to track data quality. So quality control and assurance type activities to make sure that the data that are being collected are what we are, that they're the highest possible quality. And also some other skills that maybe don't seem really direct, but time management skills. If you have a lot of different activities occurring and your crews are out running around doing a lot of different things, having the skills to track those activities, follow up with people and make sure that they're completing the tasks as you're expecting, checking in with them and making sure that they don't have any questions, or if they do have questions, getting them answered. So those are a lot of the types of activities that we need. I keep talking, I'm sorry, I'll let people answer, but one of the other things that NEON does is that we have sensors that are out in our field sites collecting data about the physical and chemical environment that's out there. And a lot of the people who are helping with managing the sensors that we have out there don't necessarily come to us with a sensor class. You might have a botany class and you might have a mammalogy class, but many programs don't have a sensor class. So how do you calibrate and maintain pH meters and CO2 sensors and all these different types of equipment? That is something that isn't trained in most undergraduate programs. So we're looking for people who have skills with tinkering. Have you built a computer for yourself? Did you fix your parents' lawnmower? If you're someone who can get your hands in there and take apart stuff and follow an instruction manual to put it back together again, those are skills that may not come from school, but they're incredibly valuable to us when we have these instruments out in the field. So that's kind of a unique situation with what we. Okay, I'll stop. Thank you.
So since, for the sake of time, does anybody, does Jill and Ralph, do you have anything to add to that? So like, is there a skill that you would very much look for in a student that's graduated and with undergraduate field experiences, like Andrea said, like, is there like that one skill that you cannot have them not have? Is there something like that?
The ability to embrace technology as things will change. We have a plethora of positions for measurements. Some of them we may use a diameter tape to measure the DBH of trees. We may have to work with LiDAR. We have all, so one skill does not cover everything, but the ability to cover some things become imperative. That is, know the position and the technology that will be used, and try to match yourself with that, because there's a diversity of jobs that we have, from survey to technical assistance, and it can be very, very technologically based, or it can be very standardized, of taking measurements. And again, we've talked earlier about being precise and collecting data and the level of accuracy. So it depends on what the job is that you'd like to have, because we have maybe 30,000 folks, and we have them from research scientists to folks who do survey monitoring and technical assistance to measurements of all sorts. So I guess the ability to count and measure accurately, and to have some enthusiasm about it, and have that attitude, is probably more, is just equally, the soft skills are just as important as the hard skills.
Right. Thank you so much, Ralph, for that. Jill, do you have anything to add before we move on?
I have a couple, and I'll be brief so that we can keep on track. And the first one isn't a deal killer, but it's always nice to have someone who comes in who has some first aid and wilderness types of experience, so that we know that they will be helpful if there's an accident. They won't become the cause of an accident because they've been thinking about that. But it's not a deal killer if I hire someone who comes in to do field work with us and they don't have that experience, we would give it to them. We all took inflatable boat safety training last year, where we had to jump in and out of boats all the time. And so we all took that training. The second one is also not a deal killer, because I didn't have this skill when I graduated college, but critical thinking skills. And it applies to everything that both Ralph and Andrea just said. The idea to think through a problem, whether it's a crisis or whether it's a scientific question, or if it's a procedure or management, the idea to be able to logically put this through and look at the pluses and minuses of making a decision one way or another. So like I said, I didn't get critical thinking ability, if I ever did, until I was in graduate school, but I would love to have it in my hires that I bring on as interns.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Jill, and thank you so much, everyone, for your responses. So we will now move on to our second topic of the day, and I'll pass it back to Ahinya to ask the question.
Okay, so for this topic, the general question is, how do you accommodate employees? Well, it's not exactly a general question, so I'm just like, it's going to be a pretty specific. So how do you accommodate for recruits who have physical disabilities, and what physical disabilities can you accommodate for? Because like for some physical disabilities like motor impairment or speech impairment or visual impairment, like you can accommodate to them to an extent. So I would like to know to what extent you can accommodate for it.
We'll start with Andrea, and then we'll go with Jill and Ralph. So let's go that way.
So for our field positions, a lot of the motor impairments that would be profound really would be prohibitive to being able to get to our field sites and do the work. So there's some real challenges with accommodating for field work. There are lab activities that we do for all of our work, whether it's soils analysis or identifying micro or macro invertebrates that can be done in the lab, that we absolutely could hire people who have motor difficulties, because that work is in an environment where we can easily accommodate all kinds of disabilities. We did hire a couple of years ago a technician to come work for us who was profoundly hearing impaired, and he was very upfront about his having experience and worked in the field, and was confident that he would be able to do the work. And we found that accommodating his hearing impairment was very easy. All of our training materials have closed captioning and written materials that go along with them. And with a lot of the adaptive technologies, he was able to communicate with folks who had a hard time reading their lips by just simply having a phone that had voice to text recognition. And so he was able to work with us very successfully all summer with basically no hearing. So it took a little creative work, but the accommodations really made the job rewarding for everybody.
So for us, the research that we do is remote. Getting to our sites is a matter of a 2.5 mile or 6 or 7 kilometer hike or ski in the winter. It would be, but we're also in Colorado, where there are a number of athletes who have physical disabilities and they overcome them. So if they were comfortable doing the field work with us, given the fact that it's remote, it's rocky, you have to climb up waterfalls. If they didn't have any problem with it, I certainly wouldn't. I liked what you said about hearing impairment. That wouldn't be a problem at all. Visual would certainly be, because there's cliffs and you wouldn't want to fall off. We've never actually had someone apply though, and it would be interesting to try to accommodate someone and work around them. Our work is mostly field work. We have some lab work too, but we never have enough to hire someone full-time to do the lab work, which could be accommodated. Someone in a wheelchair, there'd be no problem.
Right. Thank you, Jill. Ralph, do you have? Yeah.
Yes. We're required by law to have the appropriate accommodations that would afford folks an opportunity for employment and to grow within the unit. Obviously, there are certain things that can't occur because of certain limitations, but the ability, if we can make it using technology available for folks to do those are the efforts that would be put forth. And again, in the Forest Service, we have disciplines, needs for everything from field crew, whether if we had fired, whether or not someone would have to work, be a radio technician to be able to dispatch. So folks can be matched with the type of jobs that we have in the field. It's just that it takes a concerted effort to make sure that, number one, safety of the employees and the opportunity for employees to grow professionally and personally. So there's an effort to try to make those accommodations available.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Ralph. And that was really informative, because you mentioned, like, for hearing impairment, it wouldn't be that difficult to accommodate for it, which is something that I definitely did not think of before, that it would be actually a possibility. So thank you for your comments, and I'll turn it back to Ahinya to ask the second question, which will also be, I think, the final question, depending upon how long the discussion goes before we move on into Q&A.
Okay, this question is also sort of similar. So this question is about like how you would accommodate recruits that have cognitive disabilities and what cognitive disabilities that you can accommodate for.
Jill, if you mind going first for this one.
Well, I just have a question. Could you give us a definition of cognitive disabilities?
Right. So when we mean cognitive disabilities, we mean dyslexia, ADHD, ADD. So how would you accommodate for recruits with disabilities like those?
Yeah, so I've actually had students with ADHD. We accommodated actually by trying to calm this kid down and take away our equipment from him because he was waving it around in ways that would ruin it. But otherwise he was fine. He was excellent in the field. He had, so ADHD was not a problem. Speaking dyslexia wouldn't be a problem as long as they could follow instructions, and if that meant telling them to them instead of making them read things, that would be fine. So we have only encountered this one student with ADHD, and it was pretty severe. And you could tell when he was off his meds, and then we would try to help him and get him back to a position where he could calm himself down. But it was certainly fine to have him in the field.
Great. Thank you so much, Jill. Ralph, would you mind going next?
Yeah, when we hire folks with different abilities, I'll call them different abilities, we do an assessment of what can they produce, they bring something to the table. Everybody brings something to the table, but the matter is, how do you match that? And number one, it has to be in a safe environment, in a productive environment. So we don't have a set formula, but we have a process by looking at the individual and figure out what that individual brings, the skill set that they bring, and how they can be productive. And we try to match that and maintain an environment so that the element of safety is always there. That is paramount with us, of safety and productivity for personal growth.
Right. Thank you so much, Ralph. Andrea.
I'll just tell a little bit of a personal story. So I have pretty severe dyslexia myself, and have been able to perform my job well enough. I guess I could continue to have one, so that's a good sign. And for the example of dyslexia, certainly that's a problem with reading words and numbers and having challenges with the orientation of them. And when you're collecting numbers in the field, that can be very challenging, because there's certainly a big difference between 73 and 37. And for a data quality component, we have processes in place that help to cause or check our values right away. So we always call and repeat numbers back and forth. I'm writing down 37, and they'll say, actually, no, that's 73, and we can go back and check those things. So we have ways within our work to make sure that the work stays good, even if people don't have, or if people have challenges with the type of work that we're doing.
Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, and I think that is the most important thing, is to see how you can accommodate for them. And, by being like, okay, I am patient enough with you, patient to make sure you learn it the right way, or we correct you when you're wrong. And I think that's so important. Actually, so while we're moving on to the final topic, we do have time for that. And I really did want to have time for that. So let's just have attendees put questions into the Q&A while we're having our last discussion. So when we get to the Q&A part, we can definitely answer them as they go. All right, so last topic. Okay, let me see, there we go. So this is back to Karina, So
yeah, let's talk now about diversity and inclusion. I'm going to make a general question, and please feel free to open your mic. I think I'm going to do it first Andrea, then Jill, and then Ralph. Okay, I'm going to make the question now. How do you promote diversity and inclusion in your recruiting process for recent graduates from underrepresented backgrounds?
For the NEON program, this is definitely a high priority activity for us because, well, for two reasons. One, we know that there are very low levels of diversity within ecology, and that the NEON program, because of the number of people that we are giving these opportunities for very early entry positions located across the country, we're well positioned to give people from many backgrounds an opportunity to try on ecology for size. So the biggest way that we have been working to promote inclusion is to do a lot of recruiting efforts in locations where there is a great deal of diversity. So we've been working at making sure that the NEON program is known about, and that we have connections with the staff at tribal colleges across the country, underrepresented groups, including working with historically Black colleges, with working in areas of higher rates of poverty where people maybe don't have the opportunities to, do an internship, but could do work and be paid to do this type of work. Hopefully, by presenting the NEON program at those places, folks who are really interested can apply for our jobs and get that first job and get their toe into the door of ecology. So here's hoping.
So I am very lucky to be on a college campus, and the Ecological Society of America, as most of you know, has this very successful program called SEEDS. And SEEDS has an undergraduate chapters all over the country. There's really strong ones in Puerto Rico and all over, and we have one at CSU. So for my recruiting is often looking for women because at Colorado State University, that's been easy to find really qualified women. But we have lately, I've been able to cherry pick out of our SEEDS chapters and pick up wonderful Hispanic women and people who have come out of poverty, as Andrea just said. But the other thing I'm very excited about with the US Geological Survey is that we are going to be promoting, we hope, I'll be part of this, a program through the new administration's, they call it Climate Conservation Corps, CCC. And the idea will be to go to colleges all over the country, such as Andrea described, tribal colleges, HBCs, Latinx types of colleges, Hispanic universities, and recruit them from the very beginning into internships with the US Geological Survey. And they would work across in field experiences throughout their undergraduate career. They would be paid, and then they would be hopefully supported through graduate school. And with that, maybe make an intake program into the USGS as researchers. So we're excited to have this opportunity. All I can say is stay tuned, but we want to get this off the ground soon.
This is a very personal and good question when we talk about promotion of inclusion. When I look at the agency that I'm part of, the agency started in 1903. None of us were around at that time, but I was around when we started doing the multicultural. There was an effort of multicultural efforts to diversify the workforce in the 90s. Well, there were programs before that. One of the things that we've had a presence on land grant universities early on. It used to be, and I'll try to be short with this, used to be in the 1862s. These were the land grant schools that were started at the same year that the Department of Agriculture was started. Those were predominantly white schools, and they had a school in each state. And then later on, the second Morrill Act, the 1890s, there were some historically Black colleges and universities that were granted some land grant status. And then one of the things that the Forest Service has done, we've put liaison offices in the tribal schools. We've, from the Menominees, we've started this relationship. So part of it is to promote the inclusion, is to get a presence on the campus where we have folks that are getting educated in the environmental sciences. So it's a concerted effort to have folks on the college campuses, but to also do internships. They have summer internships. And so we have a lot to do. I think we made a lot of progress, and I consider myself to be a product of that. And I think I've done very well. I have 3 degrees from HBCU, so I've done okay. The message to me is not where you come from, but it's where you're going to go. And it goes full circle back around what we're talking about, the ability to be explorative and to try to learn how to communicate differently, and to push yourself to understand that you do bring value, a different perspective. And we talk about the diversity of thoughts. We talk about, if we look at ecosystems, the more diverse ecosystems are, the more they're resilient they are to disturbance, and the more productive they are. So when we talk about the understanding of the promotion of inclusion, it is about increasing the capacity for providing an opportunity for this to be a better world. That's a real fact, from at least from my lens. So I've lived it. I continue to live it. The organization that I work for, we have a lot of programs, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raf. And another place I think it's so important with diversity is community colleges. I am from a community college myself, and now I'm going to start my PhD in the fall. And it was difficult because every interview I would go, they would ask me like, oh, why did you decide to attend community college instead of the university? Well, it was money. It was cheaper, and it was more accessible to where I was from. So all those things. So Ralph, did you have something to add to that?
No, I do agree with you. Every experience is a learning experience, and the application that we use for lessons learned becomes extremely important. So there's no one size that fit all. You're absolutely correct. Community college or trade school, it doesn't matter, because as I said before, in our agency, every skill set is needed, whether it's from ecological, economic, or social. From welders, we have job corps centers. We have everything that you can think of from a large corporation that will require the inclusion of folks from different backgrounds.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much, Ralph. I have just one follow-up question. So I know this is from our previous discussion with disabilities from differently abled people. You mentioned that you weren't seeing so many applications from them. So what do you think could be done? I guess this is just more like a what future direction? What do you think could be done to encourage more differently abled people to apply for field positions? And I'm going to go with Jill.
I'm not sure I have an answer for that. We need to advertise that the opportunities are there and that we're welcoming. But I don't know how you would go, where you would go in order to do that. I mean, I certainly know about Gallaudet University for people who are hearing impaired, but I don't know about it, other places or how you would attract them. So I'm open to a discussion on that or even suggestions.
That's a really fantastic question, and it's something that, you know, there's definitely been a lot of talk about how to increase our diversity of backgrounds, cultures, but this one is one that has not been well addressed or talked about, at least in the circles where I have been. One idea that comes to mind, especially for those who are connected with universities, is that most colleges and universities have a center for people with disabilities to help support them through their academic program. And so potentially if we could find ways to communicate positions and how we're able to accommodate people so that the word is out there, because it may very well be that it's a type of blindness on both sides. You know, if you think field biology, people are going to think, well, if I can't carry a 50-pound pack up a mountain, then my chances are over. Whereas there may actually be positions that can be accommodated if we think about the job differently. And so telling that story to the right people so that they hear it and thinking about it ourselves so we know what our story is going to be to really reaching.
Right. Actually, that's a really great point when you mentioned about the disability services, like the organization. There's also several student organizations. I'm not sure if every university has them. I haven't seen that. I've been to 3 schools. I've seen them in only one, where they have a student organization for students who are differently abled, and they, share opportunities that, have openings where they can apply. That could also be an avenue for, promoting opportunities. Ralph, would you mind going next?
Yeah. And then it's our ability to connect through the different networks. There are a lot of different networks for different groups within organizations. And when we're talking to who are differently able, part of the application process that we go through is to figure out what are their limitations so we can match folks with the right jobs. For instance, if someone has is a limited ability, mobility-wise, then he or she can be a public affairs person, a meet or greet. So it all depends. We try to match folks and whatever the abilities are, match those with the job. So we don't exclude folks, but we try to make sure we understand what is the best fit. Because when folks will visit places where there are other folks who look like them, they feel a lot more comfortable. And so I understand that. And so I think we put forth that effort. Again, I'll say we have a long ways to go, but we do make that concerted effort to try to make those accommodations. And I say accommodation that is the match with technology and abilities that folks may have, or the limited mobility, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you so much. And I also agree with another point. I don't believe I remember who made it exactly, but talking about sharing your story as to a story about how it was accommodated in at the position at your organization. That is something that I personally find really, so when I see a website for a job or institution and they say, here's a story featuring this person, how they were accommodated and how they were successful, even being differently able. I don't like when they say even being differently able, but being differently able, they were able to accomplish all of this. And they shared the story of how they were able to be successful. And that I think would be, to me, it reflects a big deal because I have severe anxiety, and for me to walk into a place, have that confidence, especially while working in the lab, and for someone to have patience with me, it really helps for me to see some other people having similar experiences, but also being successful in that job. And that would definitely be an encouragement for me personally. But since we are now officially going to move into the Q&A session, let's see what questions we have. Ahinya, so if you mind reading out the first question, please.
Okay, so there's an attendee who's curious about the soft skills that you would expect from student interns related to interacting in diverse groups. How can students demonstrate they have those skills in their applications?
I'll take a shot at it, and if you expose or share, I should say expose, but if you share what your experiences are from a community standpoint if you volunteered in different types of environment or become part of different groups, I think that is an indication of the soft skills that you have that will lead to the translation of the technical skills. And again, I'll go back to the communication. Everybody brings something to the table, but how do we share what those skills are? And that is by demonstrating that you've interacted with other folks. That's a team. That's a team. That's the indication that you're willing to work with teams and that you're adventurous and willing to learn. So I think by actually capturing those things that you might consider to be small and unimportant may be extremely important.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Okay, there's another question. Given how competitive jobs are, is it realistic for young college graduates to think they might not need any field research experience or skills to secure field positions?
So the question is, if you wanted to work in the field, do you need to have had field experience beforehand?
Yeah.
A lot of what we've been talking about suggests no, you don't necessarily, but the competition. So this person actually says, given how competitive, that's very true. You're going to have to stand out, and other people will have had that experience. So what Ralph was saying before actually applies. If you can show that you've had experience, and it may not necessarily need to be field experience, but if it's being a leader in a group of people who have demonstrated something, either being able to work with diverse people or help people in need, it would help better than nothing. But having that field experience too, I think is very important.
I'm going to offer two thoughts on this. One is that it is very helpful if there's an opportunity in the application process for you to write a letter and tell your story and make those connections if you don't have the field experience. So let's say you've done a lot of babysitting and you've worked as a waiter. Telling the story about how managing people who don't follow instructions and are crabby all the time, and dealing with the public and having to manage in a fast-paced environment where you're making decisions rapidly, whatever your experience is and the job you're applying for, if you can make the connections for the person reading your application, that's very helpful. Even if it's not direct experience, but you can tell how your story is going to benefit them, that's very helpful. The other thing is, and this is going to relate very much to what your personal situation is, but you may find that if you are willing to be mobile and try jobs in other locations, that the competition varies by place. So, of course, I'm speaking for NEON. If you apply for a NEON position in Boulder, Colorado, there's a lot of competition for those positions because there's such a large pool of people that would love to work at Rocky Mountain National Park. And so that's difficult. But if you want to work, I'm based in Jamestown, North Dakota, which is not a terribly sexy location, but the job is the same job and you'll get the same experience. So if you're willing to try living in a place that may not be your first pick for your first job and be open to different locations or even jobs that don't necessarily fit directly with what you want to do, but may get you a foot in the door, being flexible in that way may give you an opportunity to have experiences that will build towards having the job in the place that you want. That's exactly what you're looking for, but you may have to compromise a little bit on some of the things and find that those opportunities teach you just as much as the thing that you think you want when you start out.
Thank you. So we have another segment of that same question. So, and then, yes, and for employers to work with diverse groups is not only accommodation, but it might require different management styles. Do employers have special training? Do you think this is true for racial, ethnic minorities or other kinds of diversity and abilities? And I'm going to go with Ralph for this one.
Sure. We have continuous training through civil rights. We have a diversity and inclusion session that was earlier today that talked about African Americans in Northern Arizona. And we have this series of workplace environment. And it's a conversation that we have, especially in the environment that we're in now. There's been a lot of things that have accelerated in the last year or two. This has really talked about cultural differences, And so we do have those conversations, and we have sessions that actually talk about how do we need to address these matters. One of the matters is by increasing the diversity in the workforce. Then you bring all elements of society. Do we want our workforce to look like the civilian labor force? You know, they have numbers that says this. You know, this is a population, and therefore the workforce should reflect what the civilian labor workforce. No, we don't meet the target, but at least we have the conversation to figure out and understand why it is extremely important to bring the diversity in there. So yes, we do have those conversations to make sure that we accommodate the diversity of society. Not everybody liked a green room, or not everybody likes a red room. Folks may like different type chairs, different colored chairs. So the ability to accommodate what folks are culturally attuned to is an integrated process. So yes, we do bring about those efforts. It's like having a food court there. You just don't have hamburgers for everybody to eat hamburgers. So everybody may not like that. Vegetarian, so you got to have, when we talk about that, we have to look at what the workforce like and the cultural diversity that we have there.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. Jill, did you have something to add to that?
No, I agree completely. Both Ralph and I work for the federal government, and so we have all this training. It is continuous. How well it's implemented and practiced, I think, is still a very individual kind of thing, and that's going to take a lot of time. I think that we have to work very carefully so that there's no opportunity for mistakes to take place. One of the most important things is to make sure that there's just comfort between employers and employees, interns and graduate students, so that they get a chance to talk openly about what makes them comfortable and uncomfortable. And I think all of that helps make everybody feel more included, more human, and it helps get the work done a whole lot better because there aren't these barriers that are set up. But no, it's not institutional by any means, even though we're trying to make it that way in the federal government. I think there's still a long way to go.
Thank you, Jill. Ahinya, can you read the last question and then we will wrap this up?
Okay, so there's another question, and it's about, have there ever been cases of misconduct in the field, like example, inappropriate comments about third parties or from another team member, and how have these cases been handled?
Yeah, Andrea? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yes, unfortunately, there are, in I think pretty much most workplaces over the years, there are situations like this that arise. Within NEON, and I can probably speak for the federal government as well, there's very clear guidance on these must be addressed immediately and brought up chain. And so if there is a report that there has been any kind of misconduct between teammates in the field, supervisors, even contractors that you might be working with that you're not actually working directly under the same supervision, those situations in our organization are handled very directly, and it can lead to the loss or termination of the position of somebody who's behaving inappropriately. And it really depends on what the situation is, the level of reprimand that might happen in that situation. But we really encourage people to be very straightforward if they run into any inappropriate behavior in the field, because of course, the only way it can be addressed is if it's brought forward. So we don't want to have a culture where people are just letting things slide and letting it go. That's very alienating and does not help anyone in the workforce.
Thank you, Andrea. Jill, do you have something to add to that? Yeah.
I do. The important thing that Andrea said is that people have to feel, or they have to bring it up. They don't want to suppress it. So that's where being comfortable with your team, with your employer, is absolutely critical, so that you feel comfortable enough to say, there's a problem and I need to talk to someone about it. So it's all about interpersonal relationships and making everyone feel empowered so that they don't feel alienated and they don't let it get swept under the rug.
Thank you, Jill. Ralph, do you have something to add?
Yeah, if an incident occurs, I have a duty to respond within a specific time frame. Depends on what it is. I can call it inquiry, management inquiry, whether or not I get a direct complaint from an individual or if it becomes from a credible net source. there are ways to deal with that. And it can range from a letter of reprimand, suspension, to removal. As a matter of fact, they just published for the Forest Service the 2020 actions, and they did range from suspension without pay to removal. They didn't have the individual's name, but they had the work location, so they are addressed. And yeah, we've had a history of incidents. If you've seen the PBS series, or we had some folks go before Congress that had of women who had in fire camps that had great difficulty, and so it is high on the radar screen. It is something that's not tolerated, but it's something that will be dealt with. And so that's there are ways to address that, and we do actively address it. Do some folks get under the radar, fly under the radar screen? Yes, that happens in society, and that's not an excuse. But the fact of the matter is, if something happens, it will be addressed in the appropriate way and in a timely fashion.
Thank you so much, Ralph. And we are at the end of our session. Thank you so much to all three of the panelists, Andrea, Jill, and Ralph, for joining us today and giving us so much important information and having this discussion that is really going to be really informative, not only for us, for our research, but also for all the attendees that are attending the session and in the future. So thank you so much for everybody that attended today, and we will now wrap things up, and hopefully we see you guys at our third one, which is going to be on March 10th. I'm not sure if Ahinya, Karina, if you guys can put the registration link for that, if you have it ready. So that's going to be on March 10th, and that's going to focus on undergraduate field programs, people from undergraduate field experiences and their perspective on what kind of skills you're developing and how that will translate into your workforce. Andrea, do you have something to add?
No, I just really appreciate being invited. It was wonderful to talk about this, and I look forward to seeing applications in our applicant pool for those summer seasonal positions.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
I echo that. We need you.
We need you.
Thank you. Any of you on the phone or on the call, if you want a summer job in the Rockies, let me know.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, I think I have the control to stop the webinar, so I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the next one, and have a great rest of your week. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.